Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. We are joined by Kane, Jared, and our very special guest tonight is Zoubida El Arabia. She is from Essex, originally from London, England. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Zoubida. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself, firstly, before we get into things?
Yeah, so my name is Zoubida. I would say I'm a public speaker, advocate for, the self-sufficiency of Muslims. And obviously recently with the whole Israel and Palestine issue, I've been quite involved in public protests and, trying to have dialogue with the opposition to try and, find solutions.
Fantastic. And that's actually how I caught wind of you, because you did a podcast with a friend of ours, Joseph, from the Israel advocacy movement, and you guys happened to meet at a protest, right? He went down there and you guys made a little connection, and from that you did a podcast.
I've actually known Joseph. No, I've known Joseph from Speaker's Corner. I spoke to him about 2019. I had a conversation with Joseph in Speaker's Corner, so we're quite familiar with each other.
Okay.
But yeah, that day you came to the protest was the first time I really sort of spoke to him properly. You know what I mean? But I've been familiar with him, and he's been familiar with me for quite a while.
I see. And from my perspective, you guys had a really nice chat, and it was very, very civil, which I think is really important in dialogue. Whenever you're talking about Israel Palestine, it's good to keep it productive and try and keep it civil as much as possible, because unfortunately, I'm sure, as you've seen since you've been following a few of these things, it can just get ridiculously hateful and vengeful online, and that causes a lot of issues, of course, on both sides.
100%. That's why, for me, I think having civil discourse is very important. Because sometimes, I feel like a lot of the both sides are maybe very misinformed and have misconceptions. So it's better to ask the individuals themselves directly rather than going to different sources which are not really reliable, i.e. the mainstream media.
Yeah. For sure. I fully agree with that. I mean, we have a Palestinian buddy of ours who, he tells us that it's one thing that they're saying to the public, and then behind closed doors you'll hear 1,001 different opinions. Yeah, completely different than what you're hearing. Yeah. And I think as well, when things are said in the mainstream media, part of the issue, Zoubida, is that it's sound bites and it's very small time that people are speaking. So it's all about getting one over on your opponent instead of actually building productive dialogue. What can be done? We're now in a 100-year conflict, Zoubida. That's the situation we're in. We have cousins fighting each other. We have branches of the Abrahamic religions of Isaac and Ishmael who have been at war now for 100 years, and many sad things along those 100 years have happened to both sides. So it's about drawing a line in the sand and trying to move forward from there, if you can see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you pointed, there is a relation there. Okay, the Jews and the Muslims have had a very long history together. They're very closely connected. For me personally, I just feel like our cousins, let's just say, have overstepped the mark, I believe personally, in this 100-year conflict, because unfortunately, when it comes to their history, they are a persecuted people, right? I'm not going to ever take that away from them, but I feel like us as Muslims, as their cousins, I feel like we've done more than enough to cater and look after them. And I just feel like this is a bit of a slap in the face. And this is exactly what I said on that podcast with Joseph. I said it's almost like beating the hand that feeds you, okay? Because again, if you look at Jewish history, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just the wording of that is kind of problematic. Let me put it this way, because I hear a lot of Muslim people say this, Jews live better under Muslim rule, which yes, it was much better than we were under Christians. But does that mean we have to be eternally grateful to every single Muslim, to every single Muslim state or Muslim ruler forever as Jews? Like it's kind of like a white person here in America going to a black guy and saying, "The white man freed you. Be more grateful." That's kind of what it feels like to me. But especially when you say biting the hand that feeds you, like we don't want to have to rely on you for food. That's kind of where I think of one of the big disconnects is.
Got a point.
I mean, the relationship between the enslaved and the enslaver is much different to the Jewish and Muslim relationship.
Yes, of course.
I don't think that's much of a comparison. Of course, I don't expect the Jews to be eternally grateful towards the Muslims, but it's very ironic in the sense where the people that looked after you are the same people that you are oppressing. And that's just my main point. Like, because there is a deep history between us, I just would have expected the people to behave much better towards those who historically were the most accommodating to you historically. Because again, when you are a persecuted people and everywhere you go, unfortunately you're being persecuted, and the ones that really gave you a safe haven, and this is the way that you treat them, that's my main issue. I'm not saying that Jews don't have the right to self-determination. Of course they do. Every people does. But I just find it, again, very ironic the way that they're treating the Palestinians, who are majority Muslims. I'm never going to take away from the fact that even Palestinian Christians face issues as well, 100%. But again, the majority are the Palestinian Muslims, and the way they're being treated, it's just, for me, in my eyes, it's unfair, Yeah,
of course.
So,
and you're completely right with
I'd just like to tackle a couple of points there. At the end of the day, you're right that there were good times for Jews under Islamic rule, but there were also some terrible times. So what has happened in the last 100 years between Jews and Arabs? There's been a tear between them with every little event that has gone on, and they're all interlinked, right? So, you can look at what happened to my family coming from Aleppo, Syria. Once Israel was founded and my granddad was here, his family was stuck in Syria. He could never see his parents again. And that was because they couldn't get out of Syria. It wasn't until the 1990s where Hafez al-Assad did a deal with Clinton to let the last Jews of Syria out, and then they could flee. And there's been issues in other countries, in Iraq, where I believe you have roots, Jews were integrated into the society. They're part of politics, music, etc. But after 48, there were a lot of riots and pogroms going on over there, even in Morocco, which was very good to the Jews in general. There were issues over there. So my thing is, what we're about here at Open Peace is really building the dialogue and making that tear, close it step by step, and bridge that gap and try and get back to the point where we are cousins who are loving each other and not cousins who are at war. Because unfortunately, it's us that suffer here. It's Israelis and Palestinians that suffer on the land because of this conflict, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I agree with you, brother. And the thing is, like, what I tried to delve in before, because we have to understand that this is not just strictly based on politics or Jews having a homeland. One of the main parts is religious connotations, okay? And I feel like with Jews, okay, they already claim religious supremacy by calling themselves the chosen ones. If you call yourself the chosen one, then you're saying that you are superior to others. Okay,
But
so
it's
not really what we mean by that.
It's
what does
not
it mean
necessarily.
then? Explain to me.
Not necessarily. That's up to debate. That people have debated that for thousands of years. Chosen for what? It doesn't actually say chosen for what.
Chosen just to worship this one guy. That's the way my family taught me to view it. Like that's all we were chosen to do, just chosen to worship this one God.
Well, no, because obviously Muslims do that too, and Christians do that too.
I guess.
The way it's been explained to me throughout my life and my childhood was that when we say we're the chosen people, it doesn't mean that we're better than everybody else. It means that we've taken it upon ourselves, or if you're religious, that God gave us the responsibility to be an example and actually to try and live as best we can and contribute to people becoming better. It doesn't mean that we are better. It means that we have to try our best not to be, corrupt and all of these things. Obviously, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
Sometimes we fail.
Plenty of
I mean,
times.
from what I get, like I said, Islamically in the Quran, we're taught about Banu Israel, the children of Israel.
Yeah.
And like you said, they were chosen to set an example. And there are connotations within the Bible and the Torah, which refers to the Gentiles and the heathens, which means, the message is not necessarily for them. And, the difference between Judaism and Islam, what I feel personally, is that Islam is a universal religion. It doesn't claim supremacy based on a lineage. And I feel like the supremacy of the chosen people is not based on actual principles, it's based on the lineage that you come from. Again, if you're from the lineage of Isaac and Jacob and all these things. And I feel like these connotations, I'm not saying every Jew thinks like this, but what I find is these connotations are intertwined with Jewish extremism. So last time when I was speaking to Joseph, I spoke about the King Torah scripture, okay, which was written by a rabbi extremist who was using connotations like, the Jews are the chosen and superior, and there was also a verse or passage which said that it is legitimate to kill Palestinian children because those children will one day grow up to bear arms against us. So my main thing is sometimes Judaism is intertwined with Jewish extremism, which justifies the oppression that we're seeing. It's the same as ISIS, right? You have extremist Muslims who use Islamic scripture to justify their extremism, and I feel like some Jews do the same.
I think the difference
that's
is,
what
though,
all
one
extremists
second,
do.
Jared, 1 second. I just want to address this because I think it's very, we got to get this spot on, right? Because at the end of the day, Jews are not a huge demographic. Islam is a huge demographic in the world, right? If we're looking at things, you're right that Jewish extremism is an issue. 100%, we have an issue with Jewish extremism, and there've been acts of Jewish terror as well, which 99% of the populace condones and hates and does not support any of those people. That rabbi that you said, and people like Nature Karta who are against the state, and you see them with Iranians and all this kind of stuff, that's like literally the tiniest percentage of mainstream Israel and what's going on here, in general. And I would say that if we're looking at the Islamic side of things, because it's such a huge religion, we're maybe seeing more extremism. If you look at the countries, if you go Somalia, Yemen, Libya, there's places where there's tons of extremism, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad. Unfortunately, the kind of bad interpretation, what you were talking about, the more extremist interpretation of the literature has taken over, and I actually had an argument with a buddy of mine today about, what would happen if we were 1.8 billion? Would we see, the kind of crazy, and I reckon we probably would see. So what I think needs to be done over here personally is that any type of bad behavior, regardless if it's done by a Muslim or by a Jew or by a Christian or by somebody who is a non-believer, that bad behavior itself needs to be condoned. So if Palestinians are throwing stones at Jews, that needs to be dealt with. If Jews are burning Palestinian olive trees, that Jew needs to be dealt with. And it's by the police. It's not by normal democratic.
Not by mobs.
Yeah, not by mobs, not by lynchings, not by craziness, by the law. That's where I think we need to get to over here. Any type of bad behavior, any type of extremism is dealt with straight away. Cut it down where it stands.
Yeah, but also unfortunately. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, but unfortunately, in Israel.
No, let's hear what Zubeida's got to say.
Yeah.
No, I think the issue of bad behavior needs to be defined very clearly, because I believe that the Palestinians, I'm not saying every single one, but I'm saying most of the Palestinians aren't committing bad behavior. Defending your land isn't bad behavior, okay? So again, I agree with you. Extremism on all forms is bad. Bad behavior on all forms is bad. But we have to identify who is committing the bad behavior. Now, there has been this narrative, like, for instance, on the news, when the whole 11-day conflict was going on, you had many interviews happening, okay? And the way that the Western media has dealt with it is absolutely disgraceful. I can bring you two cases when they had a Palestinian man, I don't know what sort of position he was in, but I remember he was speaking to one of the Western medias, and he was basically explaining the plight of the Palestinians, and she kept on asking him, the interviewer, what about Hamas? What about Hamas? And then you had another case where the Western media said that Palestinians had died and Israelis had been killed. So they didn't differentiate between who was killed and who had died. And according to them, Palestinians had died. They never gave them the benefit of, identifying the way that they died and just saying, they were died. But saying somebody that died could mean anything. They might have died of cancer. They might have died of an illness. No, the Palestinians that had died were actually killed. Same way that the Israelis were killed. Okay, so my main thing is when we're speaking about bad behavior, we have to be specific as to who is committing the bad behavior. And during these 11-day conflict, it definitely wasn't the Palestinians that were committing the bad behavior. Okay, it was the Israelis yet again trying to expand their settlements in Sheikh Jarrah. Okay, that's bad behavior. And when the Palestinians resist, we can't call that bad behavior. We call that resistance.
But that's not exactly because
that's not exactly the whole thing.
It took place. It was a civil case, and there was a lot of history behind it, swapping back and forth who owns the land. Originally, it was owned, and the deeds still say that it belongs to those Jewish tenants and owners. And I mean, look, I get it. There's no need to kick people out during their
Can I ask you a quick question? You said it owned to Jewish tenants. How far back did it belong to those Jewish tenants?
150 years, Zubaydah. 150 years. It's from the Yemenite Aliyah in the early 19th century.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, bro. Like, you can't 150 years later, when people have occupied it, lived there, built it, say, "Oh, this is mine now." Come on, bro. You're from London.
Yeah.
You can't do that in London, bro. Whoever takes a tenancy and lives there, it's theirs. You're just gonna have to go find somewhere else. That's just how it is. Like, if that's the case, there'll be so many people claiming old property. That's not realistic, bro. But I just feel like it's very arrogant to do that. Oh, my family owned this 150 years, even though there might have been people living there. I want 150 years reclaim it. That's ridiculous, bro. Come on, that's not realistic.
To be fair, London hasn't been split up by war and had huge population transfers within the past generation or so. Yeah, that's part of the thing that makes it so complicated, is that what still counts after the war and after these borders were drawn, then erased. And the courts are doing the best they can. I mean, and it's honestly, in my opinion, it's not really the court's fault. It's the fault of the legislatures. Like, the Knesset needs to fix this shit.
Sure, but you say there wasn't any bad behavior on the side of the Palestinians. Well, there was, Zubaydah. You have to look at it. Hamas, after what happened,
and we're not blaming Palestinians for Hamas either.
Definitely not. Rockets were launched towards Jerusalem, towards the holy city, towards Al-Aqsa, towards Bayt al-Maqdis, right? And by a terrorist group. There's going to be a reaction to that. There was also, riots and things going on the Temple Mount, and there was also a tree that was burnt up on Haram el-Sharif, which was very sad to see. There was very, very saddening incidents. This is what I'm talking about, bad behavior. There was Jewish bad behavior as well, Zubaydah, on the other side. There was a lynching of a man. There were mobs of people trying to...
I think it was in Lod.
In Batyam. In Lod, it was the other way round. It was Arabs lynching Jews. All of this stuff needs to stop. You can see we've addressed it in a few of the other videos. We've addressed it. And what I want to say, Zubaydah, is, there was a lynching of a man in Akko, of a Jewish man by an Arab mob, right? The man was nearly dead. The Jewish man was really nearly dead. It was an Arab nurse that saved his life and dragged him out of the lynching and took him to hospital and gave him the treatment that he needed. And now they're best friends, because that's the true bonds that people here on the ground, not governments, people here have on the ground. You have what happened in Yafo was so sad. You have fishermen, Jewish and Arab, who have been brothers, not cousins, brothers. They live 20, 30 years on the sea. They see the friends more than they see their families. That's really what's going on here. during the conflict, I fractured my elbow. As soon as I went to the hospital, I had a Jewish doctor. I had an Arab X-ray specialist. You know, it's mixed here, and 99% of most people just want to get on and live their lives here and have a good life, regardless if they're Jewish or Arab. That's the truth of it. And I'd love for you to come over here one day and actually see it for what it is, and not just what they kind of show you on the mainstream media and on the news all the time.
You know, can I pose a question real quick?
Wait. She wanted to respond there. I want to hear what she and then
No, inshallah, bro. Look, like I said to you earlier before the podcast started, I really detest Western media. Yeah, because it's such a misconception and such misinformation. Yeah, and they use these sort of conflicts to manipulate the audience and manipulate the public. Fair enough, but at the same time, we cannot still deny that there is an injustice being done. Okay, now when in regards to Hamas, you know, you obviously said they're a terrorist organization. That's very subjective, because here in the UK, the actual Hamas, it's only the military group that they will class as the terrorist aspect of it. But Hamas in itself, the body, is not classed as a terrorist organization within certain Western countries. It's definitely not classed as a terrorist organization here in Britain, same as Muslim Brotherhood, which would be classed as a terrorist organization in other place. And obviously, you know, as Muslims, we have a certain jurisdiction and legislations as to how we behave in war, okay? Which definitely means, you know, don't kill innocent people, don't kill women and children, stuff like that, okay? So if Hamas is acting in that sort of way, this is going against Islamic legislations. But the main point is, brother, is, you know, I'm sure in the hearts of Jewish and Muslim people living in that land, they want to get along. They want to. That's the ideal. But again, like I said, there has been levels of injustice that have been done through the illegal settlements, through the annexation of Palestine. Because again, we have to look at the borders of 1948 to the borders of 2021. You know, the indigenous people have been exiled. They've been exiled.
Well, we're also indigenous.
Yeah, this is the thing, Zoubida. You know, you want to look at it from
Let's get into that.
You want to look at it from our side. You know, when was Palestine, Zoubida? When do you see the start of Palestine and the Palestinian identity? I'd like to know.
Yeah.
For me, I personally see Palestine as a nation probably during the Babylonian times, personally, throughout the Roman
Babylonian
times. Yeah, because
that
again,
far.
Yeah, because you have to understand that even during the Babylonian era, okay, the Jews occupied that land, but they were exiled. Okay, so the land was replaced from that time through a different group of people, the Phoenicians. Okay, so yes, you might have had a certain period or certain time where you claimed the land, but you never really preserved the land or stood there for a long amount of time. I think the Palestinian people claimed that land longer and occupied that land longer than the actual Jews did.
Okay, so I'm going to try and give you a little breakdown of the history from our side, and you can tell me what you think, okay? So, you know, coming into Israel, first of all, started with Joshua coming in, you know, over the Jordan and taking over Jericho. And if you're saying that, you know, the Palestinians are the Canaanites that were invaded by the Hebrews coming into the land, okay, that's an argument I can you know hear. But to say that Jews haven't had control over the land or stuff like that, it's kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you, because there's thousands of years of Jewish history in the land. You're right that there was a small exile to Babylon for a while, but you know we came straight back after King Koresh.
Cyrus the Great.
Yeah, Cyrus the Great. Sorry, I gave the Hebrew name there. Cyrus the Great allowed the Jews to come back to the land. If you want to talk about the start of Palestine from where we see it after the Great Revolt in 70 AD, where we were kicked out and exiled from the land by the Romans. There was a period of Romanization, and they changed the name of Jerusalem, I'm sure, as you know, to Ilia Capitolina, to rid any reminder to any Judaism. And then they actually turned the land. They wanted to change the land's name to Palestina, and that's where the name Palestina came from, which also comes from the word Plishtim in the Bible, which means people that came from abroad. Liflosh in Hebrew means to invade from abroad, right? So that's in the sense that's where we get the word from. And then obviously, in the 630s, 40s, after the Islamic conquest, that's when we see a big influx of Arabs and Islamic rule coming into the Holy Land. And that's when Jund Palestine, part of the Greater Syria, was actually created, and Ramle being the capital, and Lud, and that's kind of the start of Islamic influence. And if you actually want to look at archaeological sites in Israel, those are the earliest Islamic sites within Israel, in Ramle, Lud, and there's a small mosque called Khirbet Minya, which is near the Sea of Galilee. Those are kind of the earliest things that are here.
But with all due respect, I don't want to come across as offensive, so please bear with me. I don't have any ill intentions by what I'm about to say. Okay, but like with Muslims, Islamic history, our holy land is Mecca. Nobody's exiled us from there. We have fought to preserve that land. Like from the day that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ declared that as the capital, it stayed as the capital 1,400 years later. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to Jewish history in their holy land, they haven't really been able to preserve and maintain their holy places. Okay, this is why when the Babylonians exiled them, you had a group that went up north, which is why you will find the European Jews, the Ashkenazis, and
the Ashkenazim didn't show up until the Roman period, when the Romans took a segment of Jews as slaves to an area of the empire which we refer to in Hebrew as Ashkenaz, which would now be somewhere on the border of southern Germany and France. That's where Ashkenazim come from. Like that's a title that came about after the Romans.
My main point is, if there was two routes when the Jews were exiled under the Babylonians, you had some that went north and you had some that went west. The ones that went west, what you would call the Sephardic Jews, that remained in North Africa and went all the way to Liberia. Okay, now from my understanding,
Iberia. Sorry,
Iberia. Sorry, Iberia. That's what I meant. But from my understanding, bro, like okay, let me ask you this: are Jews? Is it part of their scripture to have a holy land?
That's up for debate. Again, part of Judaism, why it's such a fascinating religion, is because so many things are up for debate. Even the hours between not eating meat and dairy, between different sects of Jews, it's a different hour. So that kind of question, it's really open to interpretation. Most people today, if you're asking what most people will tell you today, is that, we need our own homeland. And that's with regards to our history that you were talking about. It's right. You guys haven't left Mecca because you've been strong, right? In Arabia, and you went and conquered a lot of the Middle East and up into Europe and, all that kind of stuff. So Jews haven't had the best of times, as you know. We were exiled twice from the land. We went through a terrible time in Spain and Portugal during the Inquisitions over there. And then, unfortunately, in our very recent history, we had the greatest tragedy of all, the Holocaust. So that's why we're so adamant about our land and about having our own place, which is ours. And
So would you say, let me ask you this then, would you say the need for a Jewish homeland, is it based on persecution of Jews around the world, or is it based on religious reasons? What would the main sentiments be?
I mean, that's again. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say it's either. I'd say it's because this is where we built our kingdom thousands of years ago, and we never wanted to leave. We got kicked out by the Romans, and the land itself, the territory, was passed from hand to hand, whoever was ruling it at the time, and it's just the right to return to where we considered our home to be. The same way, like it was wrong for Native Americans to be kicked out of their land, and they're trying to
some of them.
Yeah.
So you said, but okay. But this is where I have the issue with, because I said this to Joseph last time. There are Jews scattered all over the world, and I brought the example of America. There are Jews who have established good communities in America who don't have this need to return to the homeland. This narrative of Jews wanting to return to Israel, wanting to have a Jewish homeland, isn't the default position of every single Jew, because there's I've lived in an area called Stamford Hill. I'm sure you know this area, Amir, which is
I
a
know it very
majority
well. I
Jewish
know it
area.
very well. I'm
They're
a Tottenham
settled.
Hotspur supporter, Zoubida. So yeah, I know it very well.
You know, I lived in this area. The Jews are very settled there. They're chilling. So this narrative that Jews need to return to their homeland, how come not every Jew around the world is saying the same thing? How come every Jew is settled in
I'll
America,
explain.
settled in Britain? You're going.
I'll explain. I want to get into this one because look, you know, I was born here. Yeah, I didn't choose to be born here or not to be born here or what. So my roots are here. My dad was born here. This is what I have. So I'm going to be way more connected to the land and to my friends, to my family who are all from here, right? An Ashkenazi Jew who's living in Stamford Hill, who maybe ran away from Poland, 80 years ago, and who's a few generations in the UK, might feel very comfortable in the UK. But as a Jew, that's not to say that, at any time there might be political troubles, there might be anti-Semitism on the rise, there might be things that might make him or not feel safe in the place that he's in, and that they'll want to move to Israel. That's why Israel is so important to Jews. It's always been a haven for any Jew that is in trouble anywhere across the world that they can come to and be safe. And if you look at, say, the breakup of the Soviet Union, right, where religion as a whole, not just Judaism, was, attempted to wipe out religion, and people escaped that, and so many came here as a place to reignite the Jewish spirit and the Jewish soul. The same with Ethiopian Jews.
That sort of contradicts itself, because if you're saying that Jews are looking for a safe haven, why would they find safe haven in Israel, knowing that they have such a huge resistance, i.e. the Palestinians? So it's not really about being safe.
Because it's about taking our own safety into our own hands. I mean, like, there's many different ways to look at it. Like, I mean, for example, like, Jews live in America. Half of the world's Jews live here. And we've been safe here. We've been very successful here. Doesn't mean we will be forever. There's been a huge rise in anti-Semitic violence here in America for the past decade, and it's only been ramping up. I'm talking about bomb threats to Jewish schools, people attacking Jewish property, or just vandalizing our graveyards. It can only get worse from there. And it's not about going to a place to be safe where we can just sit and chill and not have to worry. It's more about proactively taking care of ourselves.
There's another reason to it that a lot don't want to come back, and that's because for 2,000 years we weren't here, and we've been culturally colonized, basically. We got kicked out of here, and we've had no choice, no place that's ours, but to try and mix with the groups we ended up living with. So after thousands of years of that, down the line, people start to lose touch with where they come from, and they have the right to do that if they prefer being mixed in with English society. I'm from Manchester. If they prefer mixing in with the society there, then fair enough. I'm not going to tell someone they have to go somewhere. And this is part of the reason why I don't believe that Palestinians shouldn't have free access to the land, because they also shouldn't be told that they can't go somewhere. Obviously, there's lots of injustices that have been done to both peoples from both sides. And to be honest, there's not much we can do to change that. There's nothing we could do to change that, but we can accept it from one another that you guys have done wrong to us and we've done a lot of wrong to you as well. And really, the best thing
where do we go from here?
Forward, exactly.
Okay, let me ask you this, because you're saying about the only way Jewish people can thrive is in their homeland. This mixing of different societies. You said you're culturally colonized, okay? And this is something that the Muslims are going through themselves. Don't get it twisted. We've got a lot of Muslims living here in the West.
Of course.
But with all due respect, when you look at Israel, there are certain parts of Israel which are very secular, very liberal. So you look at Tel Aviv, for instance, where you have the largest gay pride events going on. So what we don't see that as a bit of a contradiction. If Jews want to be culturally Jewish and they want to go to Israel to be culturally Jewish, how can that work when there are parts of Israel which are not culturally Jewish and very liberal?
I'll explain.
Well, Tel Aviv is still very Jewish.
We're not talking about religion.
Yeah, who's anyone to tell me what is Jewish, what isn't Jewish, what's the, you know, every Jew's entitled. One of the beautiful things in our religion is it's like everyone will live with their own belief, whatever that may be. That's why you will see a range of the most secular, like you said, Tel Avivian, gay pride, doesn't even know what the rules of Judaism are, to the most ultra-Orthodox person who doesn't shave his peot because, you know, it might be an infringement on one of God's laws. So we have a range in our society, and that's great. That's something that I'm actually very, very happy about, and I would like to see more unity within our society. Between
the confusion is, Amir, because with all due respect, what's the difference between a liberal Englishman and a liberal Jewish person? Because then it makes me think, is to be Jewish, is it a religion, or is it a race, or is it a culture? Because to be Muslim,
it's all of those. It's all of those.
It's a religious group, is what it is.
So why would a secular Jewish person who doesn't abide by the laws want to go and occupy a holy land which has holy sentiments? He's better off in America.
Because
it's culturally significant.
Jared, 1 second, bro. It's not about
what's culturally significant about being gay when Judaism is against Sodom and Gomorrah? What's the significance of that?
Because it's not a religious thing. I think if we approach it from a religious perspective, there's a lot of room for us to delegitimize each other. But I'm secular, I'm not religious. The reason I want to be here is not because God promised me the land. It's because this is where my ancestors found their home and built a kingdom. We're from here, and this is where I'm indigenous to. There's nowhere else that my people are actually indigenous to. Like, this is where we built ourselves into a people.
I'm indigenously Iraqi in Algeria. But I live here in Britain. So like this argument of my ancestors occupied the land is very ethno-nationalist sentiments. This is what, because I speak to a lot of ethno-nationalists, okay, British nationalists, who say the same thing. We are indigenous to this land. Nobody else should occupy this land. And this is why we see race relations very difficult right now.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm not saying that. That part of it is not part of my statement. I don't believe that other people shouldn't have. I mean, I believe that you are also native to the land because you've been here for a long enough time. I'm talking about Palestinians.
Well, the Palestinian
time that they can say, "This is where I feel I'm from." If you want to say that, I have no problem with it, and I don't agree with the fact that there's this separation and the Palestinians don't have the freedom of access. I really don't agree with that. I understand why it's come about because there's been terrorist attacks, there's been fighting, and when that happens, like, trust starts to just disintegrate. So we need to fix that because I want Palestinians to be able to roam freely around here and live here freely and have as much right to it as I do. I just don't want to be told I don't.
Saying that, brother, but you have to understand that Palestinians have been ethnically cleansed from that land. This is why you have Palestinians living in Syria. This is why you have Palestinians living in Jordan, living in Lebanon. So of course,
you know what though, Zoubida, it must be the worst ethnically cleansing ever done in the history because 21% of Israel is Arab. Apart from that, the West Bank, there's 3 million Arabs over there, and there's 2 million in Gaza. So to say we've ethnically cleansed, we've done this and that, it's not 100%.
Well, are we?
Wait, I want to get into it. I want to get into it, Jared. 1 second.
Yeah. Okay.
What's that?
I said that's because we like to make children. We have children, bro. The birth rates are up.
For sure. We like to have children too, right? But there was ethnic cleansing on a small scale during the 48 war, right? But the 48 war, you can't just blame everything on the Jews. It was the Jews' fault. They came to the land. They started. Well, no, there was a lead up to what happened in 29. The Jews were kicked out of Hebron and massacred over there. There was the Arab revolt in the 30s, right, where there was a lot of attacks going on, and Hajj el-Husseini, the Palestinian leader at the time, was in links with the Nazis. Zoubida, He went to Germany. He was in leagues with the Nazis. So you have to understand that the things that have happened, it's a snowball that's got out of control over here, up from 48 onwards, right? It was all a lead up to what happened. I don't think.
As we speak, there's 2 million Palestinian refugees in Jordan. There's 120,000 Palestinians in Syria. This is a large amount, brother. These are people
this is a large amount, because they're also the only group of people who have refugee status passed to their kids.
It's true.
Like, is that fair?
And a lot of the numbers, Zoubida, to be honest with you, a lot of the numbers are inflated because so much focus gets put on the Israel-Palestine conflict. I want to talk to you from my heart here, right? There are problems in this world way bigger than Israel-Palestine. Believe me, there are some Israelis and Palestinians that live fantastic lives. I hate to say that, but it's true. The top of Israel and the top of Palestine are living wonderful lives. If you go to Chad, Niger, Burkina Faso, Yemen, Libya, Syria, 500,000 people dead, Zoubida. 500,000 people dead in the last 10 years. Where's the world? There's people hungry in Yemen. Where's the world? Where's the world? Let me show you something,
brother. I'm not a Palestinian. The reason why I care about the Palestinian cause, because they are Muslims. Me as a Muslim, I care about every single Muslim suffering. So don't get twisted. I speak about the Muslims suffering in Somalia. I speak about the Muslims suffering in the Uyghur concentration camps. I am Iraqi, brother. I grew up with the Iraqi conflict happening. So I don't care about the Palestinians simply because they're Arabs. No, I care about them because they're Muslims. They're my Muslim brothers and sisters who are suffering. So don't get twisted. Of course, I understand there is suffering all around the world. You know what I'm saying, Chu? But with the Palestinian issues, it's been an ongoing conflict. And obviously, like we've clearly stated, there is a relationship between the Jews and the Muslims. And this is why this is why I've attended protests, because what's happening in Palestine and Israel is affecting what's happening in Britain. There's conflicts going on here too, bro. There's tensions happening here too, based on a country that we don't even live in. So this thing is spinning out around the world.
It's ridiculous. I agree. I think that the fact that it's got to that is ridiculous. And to be honest, if you go back and you watch some of our previous episodes, Zoubida, with some of our Palestinian guests, we really do think that it's all about building things at a grassroots level. Forget about government, and because it's a mess here. You have Fatah, you have Hamas, you have left-wing, right-wing Israelis, you have all this big mess. It's about building things on the ground at a grassroots level and tackling issues that we have on the ground. And issues that we have on the ground, for me, of course, I want Palestinian freedom. Of course, I want Palestinians to be able to go wherever they go on the land. I have a friend from Nablus. I would love for him to come to my house and we can go to the beach here that he hasn't seen in years. I would love for that to happen. But for that to happen, we need to get to a stage where our leaders are even willing to talk to each other and discuss. Just to get them even in a room together is difficult, Zoubida. You understand? That's the situation we're in. And
there's a lot of resentment, bro. This is what I've realized, okay? There is a lot of history here, and there's a lot of resentment, and there's a lot of things that have happened, which is hard for the people to move on, which is understandable because, again, if you look at the history, one thing that people really neglect in the situation is Western imperialism. The reason why I believe Israel was able to become a state was due to Western imperialism via the British, because before the Jews occupied Palestine, it was the British mandate that occupied the Palestine. The British mandate didn't know what the hell they was doing, okay? Because you have to understand that during the Ottoman Empire, during the Ottoman Empire, okay, the Muslim worlds were united. We didn't have these things as borders, okay? Now, when the British mandate intervened, you had Lebanon, you had Palestine, you had Iraq, and all these countries became nationalistic. And in Islam, nationalism is haram because it divides people. We see the negatives of nationalism, okay? And again, like I said, when the Balfour Declaration was written, Jews weren't flocking to Israel. You do know that. You actually had Jews leaving Israel. What heightened the migration was obviously the Holocaust, okay? Again, Western imperialism, okay? You had the Germans with their Western Aryan supremacy mindset who unleash this oppression on Jews. So before we start to say Palestine vs Israel, let's focus on the Western imperialist aspect of this conflict, because they caused it as well.
I totally agree.
I'm happy to.
I think mostly they caused it because, to be honest with you, like, yeah, they didn't have, I would say they knew what they were doing in the sense that it was more beneficial for them to play us against each other. I definitely
divide and conquer.
Yeah, like we were not getting along with the British here. Like we fought them and kicked them out. We did our best to get rid of them from here because we didn't want them around. So it's not like they like just gave it to us. We made it hell for them until they left.
Until they gave up.
But yeah. I wanna make sure we don't fall into a trap here. Us guys and Zoubida as well. You're right that the British have a hand to play in what's going on, same as they have a hand to play in what's going on in Kashmir and India and Pakistan, right? They have their hand over there. But we cannot let that stuff, we can't blame it on them for 100 years. You understand? You can blame it on them for a little bit.
At a certain point, it becomes ours.
At a certain point, it's on you. At a certain point, it's on Israelis and Palestinians to look in the mirror and say that, look, this was wrong. It's time to fix this, and start a new future. That's where you need to get to. That's the stage that we kind of need to build on. We can't keep looking.
Britain doesn't have a right to give away this. It's not their beef in a sense. Yeah,
you're right.
I believe that they have no right to intervene and push out. I think the Jewish and the Palestinian people should have had that conversation. It was no right for this foreign Western land to dictate and intervene in Middle Eastern affairs. It's not fair.
But then how far do we go back, Zoubida? Do we say Morocco? Who's Morocco then? Is that Islamic Morocco, or is it Berber Morocco from before the conquest?
Brother, you had Jews. Yeah, you had Jews who lived in all of North Africa, even Algeria, where I'm from.
I know.
Yeah? Now, when the Algerians won independence, the French offered Algerian citizenship. That even meant Jewish Algerians. Majority of the Jews left. They wanted to go get that French citizenship. You understand what I'm saying?
Because the Algerians again were not.
No, wait, Jared. Because my girlfriend's father's from Algeria. He left because he didn't want to leave. He loved Algeria. He didn't want to leave. He left because there was a civil war and his life was in danger over there. That's why he left. Right? My family left Syria.
I'm not denying that.
My family left Syria because Syria is it was a dangerous place to be. You understand? And because they were stuck there because Hafez el-Assad until the late 90s, mid 90s didn't let the Jews out. Right? So you kind of you're basing it on things that are, it's not exactly right what you're saying. Do you see what I mean? There's reasons that people make moves. If you look at the Irish, the Irish moved in the 50s.
They're gypsies, bro. With all due respect,
listen, Zoubida, I won't have any of that talk on here. I won't have any talk on saying Irish people are just not true at all. In the late 50s, Irish people moved across the world because Ireland was distraught economically, and they went around and they found work all over the world, in England, Australia, America, and that's why there's Irish people in Australia, England, Ireland, everywhere you go, there's Irish people. And I won't have any of that. That's derogatory talk. You can't call them gypsies. Do you know what I mean?
No. What I mean by that, brother, is Irish people, some Irish people, and Jewish people, and Arab people are travelers by nature. They're nomadic. Okay,
travelers, travelers, not gypsies.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Okay, if you don't want to like the word gypsies, what I meant was travelers. Okay, because even me myself, I've got 7% Ashkenazi Jewish DNA. Why is this? Okay, because when I look at my DNA,
we love everybody.
I believe that my family were nomads. Yeah, I'm half Algerian, half Iraqi. I've got 3.4% Kenyan DNA. I've got 16% West Asian DNA. My DNA is all over the place, mate. Yeah.
Wow.
And that reflects on my nature because I'm a very travel-y person myself. And I believe that the Jewish people themselves were very traveler-like in their nature. They were always, traveling around, trying to make business. We know this through Islamic history. When the Prophet Muhammad was alive, there's many hadiths that narrate about the Jews who were living in the Arabian Peninsula at the time as being traveler-like people, as being traders. In order to be a trader, you have to be a traveler. You can't trade in one spot. So that was my main point, if you understand what I'm saying.
I understand, and you're right. Yeah,
We come from the same guy who was a traveler. We come from a who traveled. He was and settled, and we both of our peoples come from him, who was a traveler. So it's like that, yeah.
And you know, on top of that, we also have the Bedouin community here in Israel, you know, which are literally are the biggest travelers of the desert. And if you go back before even Islamic times, Zubaydah, you would find that the Bedouins of today are the Nabateans of 2,000 years ago. They were the ones leading the spice routes from Yemen all the way to Gaza. As we know, Gaza, unfortunately today, Gaza is a terrible situation. But Gaza used to be one of the most important ports in the Holy Land for centuries. And actually, the situation over there breaks my heart because originally I'm from the south of Israel. So I'm from a little kibbutz, maybe 40 kilometers from Gaza. So I remember the old days when things weren't like that, and that there wasn't a border, and you know there were Jewish settlements within Gaza, and you could go in back and forth, and you could go see the beach over there, you could go to restaurants there. There wasn't the unemployment situation that there is. There wasn't, you know, things were very different. So I really hope that, you know, through doing this podcast, through speaking to people like yourself, through grassroots initiatives, we can really affect change on the ground. And we can see it, right, guys, from when we've started this podcast, and we've seen things happen, amazing things, Zubaydah. You know, we're part of a project here called Cleaning the Hate, okay? It basically gets Israelis and Palestinians together on the land, and we just do one simple act together for the land. And that's it. We pick up trash together. We get together. We get, you know, and that's it. Those kind of steps.
Very nice. No, that's very lovely, and I love that. You know, I'd love to be a part of something like that. Don't ever get it twisted. You know what I mean?
You can be.
Yeah, inshallah. You know, like I said, I'd love to go to that area, but I just, again, you know, brother, it's just we have to be honest, okay? Like, there has been injustice that's happened on both sides. I'm never gonna lie about this,
of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the main fact, the fact of the matter is, you just have to look at the borders and the way that the Israeli territory has expanded. Okay. If they wanted to live in peace, it would be a 50-50 situation. You'd have parts of Palestine, parts of Israel. But most of Palestine has been annexed. Why? And let me show you something. This is something that I said on the Joseph podcast, right? They wanted a Jewish homeland. Cool. They took parts of Israel, Palestine, and they started to expand. There were times where the Israelis expanded all the way into Egypt when they took Sinai. So this indicates that it's not just about Jews having a holy land. There is an expansion mission going on, bro, because we know.
Nah, listen, this is the biggest myth. I want to dispel this completely.
Can I get this one? I've been very quiet. I want to get this one.
All right, you get this one, but I'll dispel it completely because the Nile to the Euphrates thing is the biggest lie anyone's ever told.
Yeah, look, all right, so first off, the occupation of the Sinai, we had no real intention to keep the Sinai. We came into control of it at the end of the 6-Day War, and we only ever wanted to give it back. Like that was the whole deal when we originally came in control of the territories. You know, Sinai, Gaza Strip, the West Bank, the Golan Heights. Originally, the government's stated mission with what to do with these territories was to say, you get these territories back in exchange for a peace treaty. That worked with Egypt. They didn't want Gaza back. We never managed to sign one with Syria. Syria just imploded, unfortunately. And Jordan signed a treaty without taking back the West Bank. So now our discussion has shifted in Israel as to what to do with these places. But Sinai, we never wanted Sinai. There were some ultra-nationalists who, said things. And, you know, Menachem Begin did some weird things when it came to, like, settlements all across everywhere. But it was never our intention. It was never in our national consciousness to take Sinai. Like, even when you go back to, like, the Lehi extremists back in the British Mandate, they never wanted Sinai. Yeah. If anything, they wanted Jordan.
Yeah, what you've got to understand, Zubaydah, is that, like, the West Bank, what you guys see on your side of us taking more land and et cetera, most well, not most, there's very, very different views, but a lot of Jews here would see that land as Israel, because that's actually, the West Bank is the heartland of ancient Judea and Israel. So you can literally go there, and our friend Aboud, who lives over there, you know, in Al Grizim, just next to Nablus, you can pick up coins from Roman era times, from, you know, from literally 2,500 years ago. There's sites from even going back 3,000 years ago. It's littered with our history. So the Jews that are over there are probably the more not extreme, but more more nationalistic ones. Yeah, more religious. You know, they feel more of a connection to that land. That's why they're there. And to be honest with you, even before the 6-Day War, if you're talking about places like Gush Etzion, which is like, you know, just below Bethlehem, yeah, that area was part of Israel before 67. It was just unfortunate that in 48 it was taken over, just like Jerusalem was. So, you know, this is the kind of.
Do you agree that at some point Israel has tried to expand its borders into other Middle Eastern territories? Well, forget the reasons.
Yeah,
they did do that though.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah. We're not trying to deny the history here. We're just trying to establish what is like real and what is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, why it happens. Say the Golan Heights for Syria, right? It's one of my favorite areas in Israel, actually. It's beautiful. It's full of water.
Yeah.
The reason Israel took the Golan Heights was simply for security, because the Syrian army were bombarding from the mountaintops of the Golan, were bombarding the villages and kibbutzim that were all along the border. So the only way to keep security is to have a security line 20-30 kilometers to the east, so that you can secure your villages. And what you got to understand as well, Zoubida, is that the start of Israel, you guys may look at us now and powerful, you know, army, fighter, all this.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't like that. We had shitty weapons. We were just a country coming out of a Holocaust and having to fight again for every little tiny thing. You understand? So you know,
I mean, our guns used to be made out of pipes we pulled out of the wall.
Yeah. A lot of the time, I see, like, you know, people say that Israel is the big dog. Israel is the one that is, you know. At the end of the day, we were the ones that were attacked by 5-6 Arab armies in 48, not just Palestinians. Not just Palestinians.
With all due respect, do you think Israel has got its military might due to the backing of America and England? Do you think it will have the amount of might that it had on its own, simply on its own? Because you have to understand, Britain, this is one of the main, what people are talking about is how much military aid Britain provides to Israel. Same with America. So do you think you guys would be as powerful as you were without the support of Britain and America?
Definitely not.
I think less so, but honestly, at this point, as an Israeli, I feel like British and American support, basically foreign support for our military at this point, is kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, it is. Like, I don't support it anymore. I feel like you probably heard Rudy Rochman say this. This is one thing he's right about, is that the fact that we have to, it comes in the form of credit from the US, the weapons. So that means that we're dependent on them, and they can influence what happens and what we do. They can exert pressure on us just through that, as well as from the fact that they're America. And so, I don't agree with that. I don't want anyone to have, like you said before, Westerners should not have any sort of pull here. We should be able to sit down as the two indigenous peoples and speak about it together and figure that out. I know it sounds hippie-ish, but like, this is the only way forward, is for us to actually discuss it. And
what's very frustrating is that you had Donald Trump, when he was in power, who made Jerusalem the capital of Israel.
Well, he didn't make Jerusalem the capital. He moved the embassy. Israel made Jerusalem the capital.
It was always the
Israel
capital.
made it the capital.
But my main thing is, obviously, due to Western support, it legitimizes their cause. And, you know, you've got Joe Biden, as we speak, supporting the Zionist cause. He himself declaring that he would have been a Zionist if he wanted to. And obviously, you know, you've got here in Britain the Balfour Declaration and Rothschilds and all these things. intervening. And also, you had situations where there was a committee when the Iraqi war was happening before America invaded Iraq, yeah, and you had Netanyahu sitting there promoting, agitating, provoking, instigating the Americans to intervene in Iraq. Why? Why is Israel trying to see, or some leaders of Israel trying to see the downfall of the Middle East to the point where they are encouraging Western intervention in that country?
So no, wait, Jared, I want to address this.
Okay.
I want to address this because the Iraqi thing, okay, I don't know exactly what you saw between Netanyahu and encouraging back. I guess you're talking about the invasion 2003-4. You know, I was dead against that. Yeah, the lies that were said about, you know, WMDs and stuff, dead against it, dead against the invasion of Iraq. Although I would say that you know, Iraq should have been invaded maybe earlier when Saddam was out gassing the Kurds and invading Kuwait. Yeah. You know, because at the end of the day, as much as I want freedom for my Palestinian cousins, I really support the freedom for my Kurdish cousins over there in Kurdistan. As you know, Zoubida, in London, there's a huge Kurdish community, right? And they're very friendly people, and we get along very, very well.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're getting sidetracked a bit, Amir.
There's a point actually that I want to make, though, which is that it's interesting because we're bringing it back again to the fact that we say the West is getting itself involved. It's funny that the media makes it look different to both of our sides, because you hate it, but we hate it too. And we feel like Biden may have said what you said, that he supports us, but at the same time, he's also called Rashida Tlaib a hero, and he's supported people who've spoken against Israel, perhaps to an overly extreme extent. So we also feel that Biden's on your side, and
everybody says that the U.S. is on the side they don't like.
Exactly.
Even if those sides are fighting the same war, everybody says that.
Which just shows that it's really them having a massive influence on it. And if it were able to be resolved between the peoples on the ground, we'd probably get a lot further without outside influence.
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask you guys, just not to change the subject slightly, but I want to talk about anti-Semitism, because I heard it was mentioned earlier. Now, obviously, for me, the term anti-Semitism, I believe, in its definition, if you were to take it literally, doesn't only cater to Jews, because it's somebody that's anti-Semite. Now, Semite,
of course not.
To be a Semitic person, is not, So, how do you guys feel about the term anti-Semite only being catered to Jews when Arabs are Semites, Aramaics are Semites?
I think it should be used differently. I think it should be anti-Jewish. We should use that term more, like anti-Jewish behavior, and then there's anti-Semitic behavior, which is everything, which includes Islamophobia, right? We just did an episode yesterday, you know, the incident in Canada where a crazy Canadian guy just went and ran over a Muslim family. We came out and spoke out against that. You know, it's shocking. We're against any of this kind of radical behavior. This is what we're here to stamp out. This is our mission, Zoubida. We're really here to... Anyone that is thinking these crazy thoughts in their head about other people or about other religions or different skin color, a little bit paler, darker, whatever, we're just not. We're not about that, and we're about trying to get people to realize that there's another way to look at things. And something I saw on the news here is something you will never see on the news where you're from, because it's just not shown. But there were 2 unfortunate deaths in Lod during the riots. There was an Arab Israeli guy who was killed, and there was a Jewish guy who was killed. And they literally just got the families together to sit down and share their pain together. And that to me is progress. That to me is getting somewhere. You know, people are trying to get back to normal life here. People are trying to rebuild the tears that just went through the community over here.
Yeah.
And you know, guys, we are kind of running out of time here, but I just want to pose one final question before I smack the show out of existence.
Although we do have a few questions as well, maybe, Jared, after.
There's a couple.
Amir, I've got a guy in the chat. His name is Toitn. He's actually a Christian. I don't know
Sure.
if he's allowed to jump on or if you can ask a question, but he's very neutral in this situation. And I noticed he's asking quite a lot of questions. I don't know if you guys want to do extra half an hour, whatever, if he can jump on. It's up to you. But yeah, he's very neutral in this situation. So I see him asking a lot of questions.
I've noticed he's asking lots of questions too.
Yeah, I'm open to having him jump on if you guys,
He's
if
really
Jared
good.
and Kana, yeah.
All right, let's
You happy with that, Jared? Going for another half hour quickly?
All right.
So
Let's do it.
Do you want to just send him the link, Zoubida, and we'll add him in?
Yeah, I'll send him the link.
Because I saw he had a few questions. I wanted to get to them at the end. He had a few questions about the political stuff going on here. You know, we're happy to talk about all of that stuff.
Yeah, he comes on my show quite a lot because with me, right, I deal with a lot of ethno-nationalists who sort of come to me with a lot of Jewish conspiracies, right? You know, like the sort of Nazi type people. But I really discuss with them from the Islamic perspective because there is this narrative that, you know, Muslims are taking over the West and stuff like that. And so I discuss with them on that. But one thing I've noticed is that they do come with a lot of Jewish conspiracy. You know, the Jews are the ones who are behind this and and even I don't believe all of that stuff. You know what I mean?
I've heard it all. Zoubida, come over here and I'll show you. It's all nonsense. Listen, like I wish, you know, sometimes I hear these things. I'm like, Jews running the world. They do this. They do this. I'm like, well, I grew up on I'm not seeing any of it. I'm not seeing it. I've had rockets over my house. I've had attacks. I've had friends shot.
But you know what it is? I'd love to because have you heard of Sasha Johnson, guys? Any of you guys? You heard of Sasha Johnson?
Heard of who? Sasha Johnson?
Sasha Johnson, yeah.
Sasha Johnson. So she's haven't heard of her.
She's a black activist here in the UK. She's a part of the Black Panther Party UK. And what I try to do is because, like I said, when I speak to ethno-nationalists, I speak from the Muslim perspective. I can't speak for the Jews. I can't speak for black people. I speak for the Muslims. Okay, so that's the reason I invited Sasha Johnson to come on because, you know, these people again, they have issues with black people and stuff like that. So I thought, why not get a black activist to speak for the black people? And I've been trying to get Jews to speak to these guys because again, I can't answer for the Jewish position because I don't know enough. So when they come to me and say, "Oh, the Jews own the what's it called, the international banking system," and the Jews this, and when they talk about communism, you know, the Jews are behind communism. I don't know enough about it. Yeah, cultural Marxism and all these things, and it's like, oh, I wish I had a Jew here to just speak about it. You know what I mean, and just refute them on those points.
So many of these things today is just pure nonsense. It's pure nonsense. Like half of it, you know, I've heard conspiracy theories up the wazoo about Jews and about this, and there's literally half of it is just complete nonsense. I hear, like, I follow a lot of Arab media as well, right? Al Jazeera, El Arabia, and stuff like that, and you know, you hear things like, well, is it not true the Jews want the land from the Nile to the Euphrates? Like, there's nothing. There's nobody trying to.
There's a lot of conspiracies, and I mean, honestly, as a Jew, because like I grew up in America, I've seen a lot of white supremacists. I've run into them a lot. There's not really much to talk about with these people because if they truly believe these conspiracies, Zoubida, then there's nothing I can say that would pull them out of it. They have to look at it themselves because they want to believe these things. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that dumbass that we have in the U.S. Congress from Georgia, who believes Jews are setting California on fire with space lasers. She literally said that. There's nothing I can say to her to convince her that that is not true. She wants it to be true. So in her world, it is. There's not much to say that I can say to these people.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question. Dan just messaged me. He said it'll be 5 minutes. He's making some tea. But this is one thing that I want to ask you, Jews, because I tried to get into this with Joseph, but Joseph just didn't want to get theological at all, okay? Now, from the Jewish ideology, from what I understand, is that you guys are waiting for a Messiah. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Again, so obviously,
in Islamic scripture, like from what I understand is, obviously in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, many other passages, It speaks about the Jews or Banu Israel, Banu Israel being the chosen people, and they were sent the Prophet Moses alayhi salam, and obviously they disobeyed him, and then obviously Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, there was conflict there, and so you guys are still waiting for a Messiah. Now we believe personally that as Muslims, we believe that your Messiah is going to be our Antichrist, the Dajjal. Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Like, what do you guys believe that your Messiah is coming, and what do you think his purpose is here on earth?
Okay. Personally, Zubaydah, I want to answer this because this is something that really it scares the living daylights out of me. Just what you said, and also the Christian version of Armageddon coming from the north and Megiddo and all this stuff. To be honest with you, personally, I'm somebody who studied. I don't think I have all the answers or anything like that. I'm not somebody who's very wise about the in depth into the scriptures, but personally I see all these kind of stories as being just that, stories. They're not something that should be taken literally. But the issue is, if people do take some of these stories literally, then you could get to a point where you're almost bringing it upon yourself, if you see what I mean, with everything that's going on in the land. So in terms of waiting for the Messiah and what the Jewish perspective is on that, if you ask religious Jews, they'll tell you, yeah, of course we're waiting for the Messiah. We're praying for him all the time, right? Whereas if you asked a secular Jew in Tel Aviv, they might tell you, well, yeah, this is what the religion believes. But then again,
I'm just trying to get a drink, bro.
Yeah, I want some falafel. I want some falafel with some tahini or some trina, like.
No, I understand that. Obviously, as Muslims, even in Christian and Jewish ideology, we believe that there is a day of judgment. Okay, with all good things comes an end. Yeah, and obviously, we believe that one of the signs of day of judgment is this Dajjal, which obviously goes in hand with the Jews waiting for their Messiah. Okay. And we balance this out by looking at the corruption that's happening in the world. I believe that the world has decayed to a level of high level of immorality, you would say. Okay.
I see where you're coming from.
Definitely.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. But then at the same time, do you not think people have said this for the last, in Islam for the last 1,400, 500 years, and in Judaism for the last 3,000 years? We've had so many false messiahs. I don't know if you know this, but we've had false messiahs, people that have claimed to be the Messiah.
About that. The Hadith says there'll be false messiahs coming, but we also have like predictions. Like one of the like really major predictions that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made, which is something that a lot of people, when you look into it, you think, wow, that actually makes sense. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that the world will not end until you will have barefoot Arabs competing and building tall buildings. Now, Arabs themselves have never been known to build tall buildings. The most tallest buildings you'll think of is the pyramids. Yeah, they weren't Arabs, they were Egyptians. The Romans, they built tall buildings. The Chinese. Now, the tallest building in the world is the Burj Khalifa, which is Arabs. And before Dubai became this luxurious tourist site, it was nothing. It was a barren land full of shepherds. Okay, so when the Prophet, peace be upon him, said the hour will not come until you will find barefoot Arabs competing and building tall buildings, the people of Dubai were literally barefoot. You can go research this, mate. They were so barefoot that Egyptians had to send them flip-flops. Yeah. How can the Prophet know this 1,400 years ago? The Arabs will be building tall buildings when Arabs have never been known to build tall buildings. It was not in their nature. These were desert dwellers. These were nomadic people. Do you get it?
Well, eventually they would have gotten there.
Yeah, like, there's plenty of things like that in the Torah as well, where you can say, how did they know about this and that? And they wrote about about plants and things that weren't even in the region. And you can always look at like what could be, like, Nostradamus and his predictions and this and this. To be honest with you, Zubaydah, personally, from my agnostic, we spoke earlier about my agnostic beliefs. I think that our brain and our imagination is so wild, we can attach anything to anything. This is connected to this. This is this. This is that. Do you remember, Y2K? They thought the world was going to end in 2000 and for the millennium, you know. There was some panic. People were stocking up on food. People were panicking.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Same thing 2012. So what I think really needs to be the focus of everything is the grassroots things that we were talking about earlier. Instead of focusing on this could happen, that could happen, maybe this, maybe the Antichrist, maybe the Jewish Messiah, what's going to happen?
It's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
do you
let's
know why I say this, Amir? You know why I say this, brother? Yeah, because when I speak to ultra Orthodox Jews, okay, they generally believe that their Messiah is coming, and one major concern that's been happening throughout this conflict is the attacks on Al-Aqsa. Okay, now Al-Aqsa is the third holiest site for Muslims, but it's also a holy site for Jews. Now, when you speak to also Orthodox religious Jews, okay, they want to build their third temple. So the thing is, there is religious connotations behind some of the actions. Like you said, there's secular Jews. Like you said, you want to eat falafels and hummus, no problem. You know, you have some Jews that are not really thinking about the scriptures, but you have other Jews who live by the scriptures and are trying to fulfill the commandments. And one of the commandments is that we have a Messiah coming, okay? In order for this Messiah to come, we have to establish the kingdom of heaven, which is in the Bible and the Torah, okay? And they have to build their third temple. So like I said to you before, brother, yeah? You have ISIS, who want to establish an Islamic caliphate, yeah? And they use Quranic passages to do this. And then you have ultra Jews who want to establish their kingdom of heaven, the chosen land, in preparation for their Messiah. And this is why certain things are happening. Do you get it?
But again,
I mean, I think you're reading into it. Like the
Jared,
actions.
Jared, 1 second, because I've actually got something that applies to this like perfectly.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Like, because I remember what I was taught, and I'm not religious again, so I don't know all the details. But what I do remember is that when I was in school, we were talking about this idea of the Moshiach, the Messiah coming back, and we were told that it will happen when, when he comes back, he will blow the shofar, which is the ram's horn that we blow on New Year, Rosh Hashanah, on the Temple Mount. And I remember asking my rabbi who was teaching us this, well, that's interesting because that could, mean a bunch of different things. Does it mean that we're going to kick Arabs out and do it? Or does it mean that we just have to blow the shofar there? And he told me, well, to be honest, that's not really clarified. No one knows. So it could be that we have to be at loggerheads. Like a lot of people take it that way because there are religious extremists. But it could also just be that when we find a peaceful solution where we're all able to worship there equally, that's when we believe maybe that, peace will be upon the land, upon earth, and everything will be perfect, like we'll be back in the Garden of Eden. That's what I remember being told.
That's interesting, Kane. That's very, very interesting. From my sides and some of the things that I've heard, and Haram el-Sharif, Zoubida, is a huge temple mount. It's not just El-Aqsa, it's the whole platform that was built during the Herodian times that was added onto, where the second temple stood until 70 AD. So I've heard some religious people talking on the Islamic side and on the Jewish side that have said, actually, there's no problem here theologically. We can actually put a third temple in Haram el-Sharif and make sure that everyone can pray up on the temple freely. Now, personally, I would love to see a day where something like that happens, because at the moment, the situation up there, as you saw a few months ago, is very tense. And the status quo isn't working for the people, because Jews have the need and want to go and pray up there, yet the Waqf are in control and Jews aren't allowed technically to pray up there, right? It's against the law. So I do think a rethink into the status quo of the Temple Mount and the old city, we definitely need to think about something. And, an international city is something that has been mentioned over the years, right? Making the old city like a little international zone. That could definitely be part of a solution, because a lot of the actual churches and religious sites that are around are owned by different countries. You understand? So if we
But
made a
let me
little
ask you something, Amir. What I
yeah,
find very, I don't know, concerning is this, right? You said that you are, you're an Israeli man, you live in Israel, you're an agnostic, but yet you value these religious sites, and you almost use them as a justification for Jews to return back, even though you yourself are not a religious person. And that's, for me, that's where I get a bit confused, because the Jews will say, we have a right to this land because of the historical buildings and because of the historical temples, but then when you get there, you don't even worship these temples. So it's again, it's secular versus religious. Do you not see that as a confliction?
I mean,
no,
again, because it's both. The identity is both. These religious sites are part of our secular, cultural, ethnic identity.
yeah,
That's
for
why, like,
sure.
we don't worship at these places, not us individually, but
But
we still see incredible value in
vitally
them.
important to me, Zubaydah. I let you in.
Yeah.
It's still vitally, the fact that I don't want to go and pray up on the Temple Mount and cause a scene. Yeah, that's my own prerogative. What I want to do. This country is important to me. I was born here. My family is from here. You understand? The food I eat are from the trees here. The juice I drink are from the fruits here. This is the place I love. This is the place I'm from. It means everything to me. So
Because you know what
regardless
it is, Amir, yeah? Like
yeah,
an ex-Muslim,
yeah,
there's no such thing as a non-religious Muslim. If you're non-religious, you're kafir, yeah? You're not a Muslim, yeah? So what my main point is, an ex-Muslim wouldn't value Mecca or wouldn't value Al-Aqsa because he doesn't live by that. So what
that's
I
their
find is,
fault, though, Zubaydah. That's their
yeah, but a
fault.
Jew,
That's their fault. Wait,
yeah.
guys. That's their fault. If you guys in Islam, if you want to excommunicate people like that, that's fine. In Judaism, doesn't matter whether you convert to Islam, convert to Judaism, become an idol worshiper, you're still a Jew, regardless
I
of
mean,
what
I
you
don't
do.
know. You kind of
So basically, to be a
leave the
Jew is
tribe
not a
if you
religion,
profess
it's a
faith
right.
in some other religion, because that severs the cultural tie.
Yeah, but
I'm
you're still
sorry, Zoubida. This
technically a
is a
Jew.
debate we Jews have amongst ourselves
You're
about where the
still
line
technically
is.
a Jew. It doesn't matter. You're still technically a
It's
Jew.
ethnicity. We're ethnically Jewish, right?
Yeah.
People who want to be racist will tell you that Jews are just a religion, and then they'll tell you that we've all got big noses. How do you think that happens
That's
just
what
from
I'm trying to
believing something?
understand. That's what I'm trying to understand, because I'll be honest with you, I grew up looking at, to be Jewish, I thought it's a religion. Like you can't, it's not a race, okay? So ethnically, just teach me, yeah? I'm just generally asking questions. Because as a Muslim is a religion, yeah? You can't be ethnically a Muslim. As you know, you've got white Muslims, black Muslims, whatnot, yeah?
Sure.
So
sure.
to be ethnically Jew, where is the ethnic, what is the ethnicity? How can I word the word? What ethnicity is it to be a Jew? If you know what I mean? Like, what's the ethnic?
Well, you
the
can be from any
ethnicity
ethnic
is
background.
Jew. Well, you could also say Hebrew.
Yeah,
I
but you
guess
could be
say
from
Hebrew.
anywhere. You could be from anywhere. You can be Ethiopian and be a Jew. You can be from Yemen. We have people that look
That's
like
because we have
Bedouins here,
12
Zubaydah.
tribes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We're after we have Jews that look. If you're a Turkmen Jew from Kyrgyzstan, you're probably going to look like someone from that region. So we have Jews from literally all over the place.
Yeah, and considering with the amount of intermarrying we've been doing since we've been kicked out of the land, we're gonna have the traits of like the peoples we've lived amongst.
Ethnically, can I pass for ethnically Jew if I got 7%, or do I not?
100%.
I mean, you have some in you. So I would say, like, ethnically, you have Jewish blood. So ethnically, I would say, like, if you want to be interested in Judaism, it's your right to come and learn about it and be a part of it as much as you want.
It's anyone's right. People can convert. That's why we say it's two separate things. We have the peoples that we are, and if you check our DNA, there are genetic markers that are consistent with all Jews that are ethnically Jewish. But we also have a set of values and traditions and beliefs that we, as that people, have, and we passed it on to our children. But if people don't want to believe in it, like there are people who are Native American these days who don't believe in the ancient Native American beliefs of the natural forces. So they're still Native American. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just we have a religion, but we are an ethnicity.
Yeah, the religion and the identity
thanks for
of both are
clarifying
tied
that.
together.
Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying that, because that's something that I really just figured out recently. Like, again, I'm not too familiar with Judaism. I didn't really grow up with too many Jews, and I always just came from the notion if you're a Jew, that was a religion. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
thanks
not
for clarifying
just.
that.
There's a massive religious element in our culture,
Yeah.
but it's not the be all and end all.
And
Yes.
what's something I think that people don't realize as well, Zoubida, I mean, I'm sure maybe not as much as Islam, because you said once people are ex-Muslim, then that's it. But within Judaism, we have the concept of becoming religious and coming out of being religious. Like, it's called lahzor b'tshuva lahzor b'she'ela. It basically means to find an answer or to come back with a question. You understand?
Yeah.
So people within Israeli society as well, within their lives, can flip-flop between the kind of being really religious, being not so religious, being completely atheist, to going back to being religious. And that's kind of the amazing dynamic that we have out here. It can be a bit crazy. You can see people, go from one extreme to the other.
To another,
But
those people I worry about, they probably have some issues they're trying to deal with, to make that radical of a change.
Yeah. Now we've got another guest on.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh wait, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. And Zoubida got muted.
He just jumped on. Let me bring him back.
What's his name, Zoubida?
His name's Dan.
Dan,
if you're listening, mate, he's back.
Dan, it's a pleasure to have you with us. If you've got any questions, we're more than welcome.
I appreciate you guys letting me on the panel. Thanks, Amir, Kane, Jared. I just wanted to kind of explore, I guess, the political context of Israel at the moment. I think someone in the chat was mentioning the sort of the various Palestinian groups, PFLP, Hamas, Fatah, Islamic Jihad, etc. And I've kind of got a bit of an understanding of those groups. But then I guess on the kind of flip side, you have to kind of look at the Jewish kind of political landscape with the Israeli political landscape. So I've been kind of plotting the rise of this. Well, I've been following the election stuff in Israel, and this is Naftali Bennett, I think it is. Is it the New Right Party? He seems to be getting. There was a roll of the eyes there from Kane. I don't know if that's you might have already done a podcast on this, so I don't know.
No, we haven't touched on it actually, because it's all we
haven't touched this yet. You're the first to ask us about it.
I mean, so what's the tension that exists? Is it mainly polarized between like Likud and the New Right Party, or are there other groups that are kind of worth a mention? Are there like left wing kind of groups in the thing?
Yeah, I mean, the main tension is like left and right in general, but there are elements of left and right, different left and right groups that also hate each other viciously as well.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's power over. It's a struggle over power, right? Like, people don't want to miss out on their chance to have the hands on the controls, basically. But with regards to Bennett, an interesting thing has happened here, because he's been seen by the left as quite right wing and not extremist, but far to the right, enough to the right. And now he's actually joining a coalition which is seen as supposed left. So you're seeing on the Israeli right and towards the far right, you're seeing a huge hatred now of Bennett and also his partner Ayelet Shaked, because they see them as traitors for sitting in this government. They would have much rather them not doing a coalition deal and just having fifth elections and try and get Bibi in again. So
again and again until the man dies of being 100 years old.
So it's a tense. It's a tense situation.
And you think these are kind of like unnatural alliances, a bit like the
It kind of is. It's an alliance that's been pushed together by the situation. There's once their goal has been accomplished, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah, that's the general consensus too.
Most likely.
People don't have much trust that it's going to work. and rightly so. Basically, the big problem is that Bennett and Lapid don't really agree on anything except
At all.
that Bibi should no longer be prime minister, which is what basically all these other parties ran on during the last elections was just not Bibi. That's all that matters. And like to an extent, like I can understand why, because we all kind of on this podcast we feel he's kind of trashed the country, and we didn't want him around either. But that's not a strong political platform to stand on. So I don't think that Bennett's really got much substance to him.
Yeah, and I mean, also we can talk about like how weird this alliance is that this is the first time that a government in Israel is going to be dependent on the votes of an Arab party to just exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the biggest issue that you have there, because you can't really see it lasting more than a year or two with that being the situation, because it's going to come to a point where people will not agree. I'm just seeing here, Dan, just to take it off to the politics, we can come back. I'm seeing somebody in the comments is saying abuse of African Jews is well reported even in Israeli media. So I think he's talking about Ethiopian Jews.
The Ethiopian Jews.
Any discrimination within Israel, there are issues of discrimination in Israel, within Jewish society, Mizrahim, Ashkenazim, all this kind of stuff. To be honest, I think it's definitely an issue, but it's not like our main problem. It's not that everyone is out being racist to each other, and that's not how it works. I mean, me personally, I view anyone that lives here, Ethiopian, Sephardic, everyone's the same to me. We get along very well with our friends from all the different sects of Judaism, if you like. It's true that the Ethiopian Jews had a tough time coming over, but it's also true that every single Jewish community that came over had a tough time. The Moroccans, the Yemenites, the Iraqis had a tough time. The Soviet Jews that came over in the 90s had a very tough time integrating. So but
there's also an argument to be made that like the Ethiopian Jews, when they came over, the government did not prepare them correctly to participate in the economy. Like at all.
True.
Like,
that is also
for sure. But do you have any more questions for us, Dan?
I was kind of hoping that maybe you could someone in the chat earlier, I think it's Clay Moore, was talking about Hamas and Fatah and the PFLP and that sort of stuff. So I mean, again, quite different groups, but you seem to have this strange sort of unity that emerged during the last sort of period of conflict, the last couple of weeks. Fatah sort of aligning themselves with like the Hamas position, PFLP. There seems to be a lot more unity amongst like Palestinians. So I don't know what which group would you say represents the Palestinians, or is kind of like
that's a tough
that's a very tough question. But from a few of the Palestinians that I know, they would say none of them. From the Palestinians that I know, anyway. The Fatah are seen as the corrupt ones within a lot of people's eyes, the ones that just take all the money that's given to the Palestinian people and build mansions with it, build huge villas and stuff. Whereas Hamas are seen more now, especially after what happened with the recent round of conflict. Hamas are seen now as the heroes, the liberators, the savers of Al-Aqsa, etc. But then again, they're also hated by a lot of Palestinians because Palestinians are aware of what Hamas does to Palestinians within Gaza, right? Which is treat them like absolute crap and chuck enemies off buildings. And, it's all very well documented, some of the things that go on in Gaza, unfortunately, under Hamas. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit of the situation with regards to those two groups.
It's a very complicated situation. I mean, with how complicated Israeli politics are, Palestinian politics are even worse. Kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems over the years that sort of Arab nationalism has taken a backseat to more kind of Islamist orientated Palestinian groupings. But I mean, the PFLP are still kind of a factor, I guess, in the region.
They are. I mean, it'll switch back. Humanity tends to go through this pattern of switching between more secular powers to more religious powers, to switching back and forth and back and forth. Yeah, there's a principle in, I think, anthropology where people talk about the gods versus men. You know, like, what's more important, the temple where the priests are or the palace where the king is? And, you know, human society kind of always goes back and forth between that. And I think right now we're just, like, this particular part of it's just heading in a more temple direction as opposed to the palace direction, if you get what I mean.
So with that said, would you say that maybe the PFLP are kind of trailing behind Hamas, Fatah, and Islamic Jihad in terms of their popular support? I know someone said that they didn't, but the Palestinians that you knew, Amir, didn't generally support any of those groups, but I would imagine they do have some support. So would you say it's mainly Hamas? Who would you say is like the forerunner in terms of Palestinian groups?
I don't know.
It depends where you're asking. It depends where you're asking as well, Dan. You know, if you ask in the West Bank, I would say you're more likely to hear Fatah in Ramallah area, for example. If you go to Hebron, where it's more conservative, you might see more Hamas supporters in Hebron. In Gaza, it might be a mix of support of Hamas and then people that absolutely hate Hamas and want rid of them and want a normal life. So it's very, very, broad. And when you think about it, the Palestinian society is very broad as well, right? So you have people that are very, very religious to very, very secular. And that was kind of the fight between Fatah and Hamas that happened in Gaza 2005-06. If you can remember, after the disengagement from Gaza, there was a power vacuum and a struggle over there. And that kind of caused the original tear in the Palestinian people between Fatah and Hamas, which hopefully, in my eyes, I would love to see Palestinian unity come around, and then hopefully, we have a decent political model on our side that can come together and actually sit down and hash out this conflict and get things sorted and back to a normal way. I always say to people, it's something, England and Ireland, as you may know, Dan, 800 years of war, right? You wouldn't mind flying over for a pint in Dublin now, though, right? It's different. It's different to how it was 50 years ago, 70 years ago. So it's very doable here. It's very, very doable here.
Yeah,
that's optimistic. Sounds optimistic. Yeah, that's maybe you need optimism. I don't know. You
do. Yeah. Well, I mean, optimism is definitely needed. We've had pessimism and fear for what is it going on 3 to 4 generations now. We need something different.
Definitely. But, I mean, what you can see it's the way we live our lives over here positively. It's the only way you can in a situation that is like this. I do take hope from the fact that the British and Irish were at war for so much longer and they managed to hash it out. And the same with the Swedes and the Danes, right? 400 years of war, and nowadays, perfect. So I really do think it can be done here, but it's on people like yourselves, Zoubida and Dan, and people listening that are interested in what's going on, to really make that step from, instead of being pro one side, I'm pro this, I'm pro that, try and be pro all the people on the land. We want the best, because no one's going anywhere. No one's going anywhere. Palestinians aren't going anywhere. There's not going to be any transfer of people and land. No, there's going to be a solution that works for everybody on the ground at the end of the day. What that is, whether that's 1, 2, 3 states, no state, no borders, I don't have the answers to that, unfortunately. That's for people to discuss. But I really
just want to start the conversation.
That's it. Build a dialogue.
One thing I wanted to touch on that I thought was quite interesting. You mentioned I termed it inclusive anti-Semitism, so including Islamophobia within the definition that also includes like anti.
Oh, I wouldn't include Islamophobia. I would include anti-Arab, like specifically anti-Arab hatred, because Islamophobia is fear of a religion. You don't need to be a Semite to be a Muslim, you know.
True. Yeah, maybe that's a more correct definition, Jared. Yeah, anti-Arab. Yeah, which is, I had a conversation with a Palestinian Christian friend of mine, and he said to me, Amir, of course he lives in a Western country. Of course I experienced racism. People call me a terrorist. People call me this. People call me that when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that it's like that, that's where we need to be educating people, and people would make fun of him. You don't drink beer, you don't eat pork, and he's a Christian Palestinian. He can do all those things.
I kind of agree, but I generally find that people's bigotry is kind of directed at like obvious signs. So it's like someone wearing the headscarf, or someone wearing a kippah or something like that. It's outwardly obvious signs of like Jewishness or Muslimness or whatever.
So something to identify what their idea of this particular group of people looks like, in their own head.
I mean, maybe it's in Israel. It's you kind of it's a bit more apparent that someone's like Arab or. And I think you touched on like the Mizrahi kind of the general anti kind of Mizrahi sentiment that exists, because I guess they're seen as like kind of Arabized Jews or something.
I mean, the main reason why. Sorry, go on, Jared. Go on.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's definitely there.
Yeah, I'll address that.
The main reason why I mentioned anti-Semitism is, I feel like, based on the actual term, if you were to take it in its literal meaning, I feel like this term anti-Semitism, even though it is exclusive to other Semitic groups, Jews have benefited from this term anti-Semitism in the West, because obviously the term anti-Semitism, the way that it is applied, is to only Jews. But like Dan has clearly said, and you said yourself, Amir, that there has been other Semitic groups like Arabs who have faced racism and discrimination, but anti-Semitism would never be applied to them. It would be either racism or hate crime. You know what I mean? So that's why, for me, I have an issue. I agree that the term should be anti-Jewishness, because there are people who target Jews specifically because they're Jews, not because they're Semitic, because 100%. They are Jewish.
Yeah. 100%,
so I think this is something that this is a Western problem.
100%. I think that needs to be addressed, and each issue in itself, like, let's say the de-radicalization for somebody who wants to harm Jews might be different to the de-radicalization of somebody who wants to harm Muslims. It might be a different process. It might be a different kind of thing to do. But at the end of the day, the core issue is the same. It's that hate. It's that fear of the other. This person is different from me, so therefore he might hurt me. And Dan, with regards to the Mizrahi Jews and stuff like that here, there have been issues in the past, and of course a lot of the historical things that go back to the 50s and 60s, with the big aliyot from the immigration to Israel from Morocco, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, a lot of the region, Libya, Algeria. And it's true that there were tensions there, but I would have to say that in modern Israel today, it's hard to tell who's who and what's what, and you have so many people that are mixed as well, of Ashkenazi and Mizrahi and Sfaradi, and now you're also seeing mix between Ashkenazi and Ethiopians, so it's really getting into a melting pot situation where
all these
things aren't looked at as much of.
Like these small different communities of Jews who seemed like, with their slight differences between each other, are just kind of like melding at this point. It's kind of what it feels like. But unfortunately, Amir, I feel like we're biting off a bit more than we can chew on this episode. We're at 1 hour and 43.
Yeah, I appreciate the time.
I think we might need to go. I need to go. My grandmother's starting to make dinner.
Well, I appreciate the time anyway. Nice one, Jared and Amir. This will be the nice one for the link. I've just subscribed as well, so I'll be catching the rest of your your streams.
Welcome.
And, yeah, might jump on again if that's possible.
We're happy to
topic.
We're happy to have you here.
Nice one. I appreciate it. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
No
Big
problem.
up them.
There. Is Amir gone? I think Amir froze. Well, Zoubida, it was lovely to have you on. It
Thank
really
you
was.
very much. I appreciate it a lot, guys, for having me. I think, and it was a good conversation. You know, like like I said, I don't really come across Jews every day. You know, and especially talk to them about the in-depth issues. So I definitely appreciate conversations like this. I appreciate the education that you guys have given me. And yeah, hopefully, you know, we can stay in touch and definitely try to build something positive. You know what I mean?
Of course. And, you know, we'll definitely have you on again at some point. I mean, if you're down for it, we'd love to have you on anytime you want.
Yeah,
Right,
definitely, definitely.
Now, I just need to figure out, because now it looks like I'm the one in control of the stream. How do I stop it? That's the main question.
I think you have to click on end live. It should be in the right-hand bottom corner.
Well, I mean, I'm on
or the
my
right-hand
phone.
top corner.
I'm on my phone, so that's where the main issue is.
Oh, you've probably you have to wait for a minute. You're gonna have to wait for a minute.
Yeah. So I'll just wait. So how was your day?
Oh, he's back. He's back.
He's
Yeah,
back.
sorry guys, I just had a little issue there.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Zoubida, thank you very much for coming on and having a real discussion where we discuss real issues and tackle real things that are going on, and we don't beat around the bush and play games. And I think it's been a real insight to hear some of your views and opinions about some of the things going on. And I think there's a lot of things that we can agree on. Of course, there's things that we're always going to disagree on. And it was nice to have Dan with us there as well. He seems like a very knowledgeable fella. It'd be great to take some of his questions another time, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely. All right, guys. So I'm going to go on that note. Thank you very much, and hopefully we can stay in touch. Make sure everybody likes and subscribes to this channel. And yeah, again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same to you. It's been great. Thank you for getting my job out of the way. Telling everyone to like and subscribe.
All right, guys. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Salam alaikum. Bye. I wonder if I said that correctly. I don't speak Arabic very well. Anyway, Safta. Oh, Amir, did you freeze again? I think he froze again. All right, so everybody's just watching me right now. It's just Jared.
That's the way you like it.
Yeah, apparently. So, how was everybody's day? Is anyone still in chat? Yep.
Yeah, I'm having some connection issues. You're gonna have to wrap this one up, Jared. You're gonna have to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't end it. I don't have the buttons on the phone to end the stream. He's having some connection issues. Can't end it.